So in this vehicle finance unit, we've talked about how to purchase a new vehicle, how to lease a new vehicle, how to purchase a used vehicle, um, depreciation of a vehicle, costs in maintaining a vehicle. And finally, the last sort of big component of this is you must insure your vehicle. Okay? Otherwise, you can't drive it on the road. And obviously, the big purpose of vehicle insurance, I mean, is to insure you against having to pay large amounts of money if you get into an accident. Right? And that large amount of money could be repairs to your vehicle or repairs to you or to another person if you're injured. Okay. So in Manitoba, the government name that takes care of vehicle insurance is called Manitoba Public Insurance. Right? And the insurance program itself that they run is called AutoPack. Okay? So it's nonprofit. Crown Corporation just means it's a government corporation. Okay? And so what does AutoPack do? Compensates you for your vehicle's damage and for any injuries you might have that aren't covered by healthcare. Compensates others for damage and injuries when the accident is your fault. And we'll talk about that a little bit. Okay? When you purchase vehicle insurance or AutoPack coverage, you must at least buy the basic coverage, which consists of these three things. Okay? The Personal Injury Protection Plan compensates Manitobans for any costs they may have received or sustained from injuries caused in a vehicular accident. Doesn't matter who's at fault or whether the accident occurred in Canada and the US. Okay. The basic all perils coverage compensates Manitobans against accidental loss or damage to their vehicles. So if somebody comes along in the middle of the night, because it's happened to me once when I used to park on my front street and just smash the front window. Okay. So it's pretty expensive to get a window replaced, but fortunately it's insured. Okay, and this kind of thing happens in Manitoba so much, like in Winnipeg so much, that they actually, I mean, you just pay your deductible and it gets repaired. And I think now it's even down to $100 for glass because it happens so often. Okay. And then third-party liability. Okay, that provides Manitobans with up to $500,000 of coverage for claims made against them. Okay, so this kind of liability covers you if the vehicle you're driving damages another vehicle or other property, or whether the vehicle you're driving injures or damages another person. Okay, so basically you want coverage so that if you get into some kind of accident that's going to involve some kind of cost of repairing your vehicle or other vehicles, or some kind of health costs that you'll have to incur. That's the purpose of insurance. Now, the whole idea is that this money that you pay every year for insurance, okay, it protects you against having to pay large amounts of money in the case of an accident. So instead of paying a large amount of money, because like you could dent your front bumper, like dent it, and it could cost you $1,500 to replace. Some of these costs are crazy. Okay? I mean, can you imagine if like you'd be out of money? So what happens is if you get into an accident, instead of paying that amount, because you paid for insurance, you paid what's called a deductible. And we talked about that with home insurance. And usually it's around $200. So if the accident's your fault, like if you run into something and damage your bumper, okay, you make a claim with AutoPack. They make sure that the claim is legitimate, that you're not trying to lie or anything like that. Okay. And once they do, instead of paying the actual cost of repairing it, you just pay the $200 deductible. And so that's just one type of accident, right? So another thing that could happen is if your vehicle is stolen. That's another thing that you're protected against when you buy vehicle insurance. Okay. So this is something sort of worth knowing, just like how much you pay for your auto pack. And how much you pay depends on 4 factors. And the first one is where you live. Okay? The auto pack rates might be a little bit different in Winnipeg compared to places like Portage la Prairie, Brandon, or Dauphin. Or if you're going way up north, up to Thompson, Lynn Lake, Churchill, it may be different there. Okay? So that's part of how your insurance is calculated. The other part is how you're going to use your vehicle. If you use your vehicle for work or for school, like to drive back and forth, you must buy all-purpose passenger insurance. Okay? However, let's say you're retired, or you never use your vehicle to go to work, you always take the bus to and from work, or you always part of a carpool with somebody else, okay? You can get something cheaper that's called pleasure passenger insurance. And you can see the restrictions there, okay? So you can only, if you decide to take pleasure, it can only be driven to or from or partway to or from work or school up to 4 days in 1 month and not more than about 1,600 kilometers a year. Okay? So there's restrictions on that. And it could possibly be checked. Okay? Like, don't think to yourself that, oh, I would just get pleasure insurance because it's going to be cheaper, and nobody's going to check. Nobody's going to see if I'm actually checking and see if I'm using it to or from work. Well, there's ways to find out. Okay? So you probably want to avoid that. The third factor, well, type of vehicle you have. Right? What kind of vehicle it is, how old is the vehicle, things like that. Because there's certain vehicles that are more risky than others. And that could be anything from being more at risk to get into accidents, or it could be more at risk for being stolen. There are certain types of cars that have a tendency to get stolen more than other type of cars. Like if you're driving an old 2015 van compared to like a 2-seater BMW, I think we probably know which one has a better chance of being stolen. Okay. And finally, and this is sort of the big one, is your driving record. Okay. And I'm sure you're all familiar with this because, well, I think most, if not all of you, have your driver's license, usually by the time you're in grade 12. And so it's on a merit system. And the merit system looks something like this, right? So when you first get your license, you start out at 0. For every year you drive, and if you're accident-free, you start gaining. You start gaining merits. And notice as you start gaining merits, they start to take a certain discount off your vehicle insurance. Okay? So until you reach a point where you're only paying for 40% of your vehicle insurance. Okay? So just to sort of sum up here, you have 1 year, at least 1 year of claim-free driving. Okay, that'll get you a little bit of a discount, and the more that happens, the more you keep accident-free or claim-free, the higher that's going to go, and the greater the discount's going to be. And then you can see the other points too. Okay, And then they use that driver rating scale. And I think that also applies to your, how much you pay for your license too. Yeah, does it? Have you got any merits yet? No, nothing yet. Okay. So like I said, really sort of the big thing you need to know, the factors that go into how your insurance is calculated and just some of the terminology that's used, like deductible, things like that. Because you could be asked, it could be like a 1-mark question. And it could be a question saying, name one factor that affects your auto pack rate or your vehicle insurance premium, which actually is a question on the hand-in assignment I'm about to give you. Okay,